A note that we have to make is that the sound interviews came from a variety of times and places, so it can be a bit irregular, and we are still rather new to the podcasting business. So that's why you'll hear shifts in tone and background noise a bit here and there, not too bothersome, we hope. All right? So minor note there, and now let's get started. We'll lay this out for you.
From some of the most creative minds on the internet comes thecinematical.com. You haven't really experienced movies until you've been here. Welcome. Experience. The chills. In the winter of 1979, an iconic director was going mad, working on the most terrifying motion picture of his career. One to rival The Shining in intensity, but the plot was nothing compared to the true horror going on behind the scenes. The only thing that could be worse than Nicholson would be two madmen actors on set.
Props handler Jeannie Shore.
I think people were afraid of him, not as a director, as a man. He would push you into corners, and I think he pushed too far.
No one alleges that a film director drove people to mass death, do they? I mean, not really.
No. But I'm just saying there was an atmosphere, one that he created.
Cinematographer Norman McCleary.
There was always an easier way than what Richard wanted. He has us go out there is the thing. We could have done it on a soundstage in LA and been home by 12 every night with a stiff drink, you know? It's just the idea of going to that Swiss mansion, middle of nowhere in the Alps, some crazy place where people were actually butchered, and the rumours of hauntings and all that crap. That's what the publicity department is for. I just never thought we needed that.
And it started to work on your mind after a while?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's the stress and all the white noise of the movie set, of any set, and then you're trapped, nothing out there where we shot, 80 miles to the nearest store or whatever, and it's snowing, and weird things really do start to happen. Stuff goes missing, weird sounds, weird things people saw at the corner of their eye. We started collecting stories, and then it wasn't so fun anymore.
Like with the kid?
I felt so sorry for the kid. I don't know any kid actor who wants to do it. They're put out there by somebody, and Richard just preyed on him like an eagle tearing into a fish. But what are you going to do? The performance was there. He was getting the performance every day. Richard was brilliant at getting things out of people. But he was covered in blood one time. I mean, he was covered. This kid, who no one knew where he had gone, he was missing for an hour at least, just gone. And when they find him in the coach house of the summer mansion, way the hell out there, he's covered in blood. No one ever knows where it came from. Kid doesn't know. Kid can't say. Acts like he just walked off for 2 minutes and everything's normal. But it's really, I mean, really scary to see that. Kid wandering out of this snowy house, tracking all this bright red blood everywhere. And so the makeup effects guy, he's in the shit. Because people at first on the set, you know, they really think he covered the kid with that fake blood, because the FX guy, people forget this, he had a criminal record, but it was just really bizarre and terrible. The boy was traumatized.
And so was his father.
And to be honest, so was his father, yes. That's when his father started to go.
Richard Maybrick's wife, Vanessa.
Because he thought Richard put them up to it. Essentially, you know, abduct the kid on the set for a little while, and then when we find him, he's covered in blood, no explanation, no one knows what's going on.
Can you elaborate just a bit? Can you explain that?
This will put everyone on edge. This will make what we shoot all the richer.
But it wasn't true. The kid's father, Sam Ellis, he was the only one looking after the kid because they were divorced. He and his wife, he started accusing Richard of trying to make the kid psychologically unsettled.
Or using the kid's situation to unsettle the other actors?
To unsettle Kurt, yeah. Mainly Kurt, who is already getting pretty unstable, with the pressure of being the lead on this big film after a few flops at the theatres, and I think pretty much everyone thinks he might have been on some serious drugs, and he was famously a method actor. I don't think that's an exaggeration.
Lead actress Mia Zarellis.
What kind of things would he do?
You mean like what he would do to stay in character, you're asking?
Yes, yeah.
Well, he would sort of... There was a bit in the movie where he starts cutting himself because he thinks there's bad blood inside of him that came from Africa when he'd been there, like maybe he caught a virus when he was in Africa.
And when he came back, he was deranged. This was in the script, so Kurt started cutting himself up for real.
He would put these weird black tourniquets on himself, so he'd have these black tatters on his arms.
He was tattooing himself with some pattern on his chest. He was listening to Wagner Tannhauser over and over and over,
conducting it like a maniac in his trailer, wee hours of the morning, and I mean never ending.
What kind of relationship did he have with his protege?
Brady. Well, okay, so let's go back a step. Brady is barely in his mid-20s, I guess, when they're doing this.
And he's kind of delicate, kind of messed up, and wanting to be a method actor too.
So you look at it and you go, this is not healthy for someone getting off heroin, or for anyone else. The setup of the movie is there's a very remote, very beautiful and large Swiss mansion that is meant as a summer house, and when the snows get very steep, no one goes there. The ghosts come out in the high winter, the place is inhospitable, you don't want to be there, right? And in Victorian times, a crazy man hired a large number of servants, and he goes up there with them, and he and his equally crazy younger brother lose their minds and deliberately gas all these servants. They use a gas on them and knock them out in the ballroom, and then they begin hacking them up, and then apparently kill each other. Now, does that seem healthy for two competitive method actors to be playing in, when they've both been under psychological care?
And that's the true story you're talking about?
The 1800s part, yes, the brothers really hired the servants with the express intent of killing all of them. And then the novel is about a normal family in the 1970s who go to this place in the winter to briefly patch up these tapestries because the father is a renowned art restorer, and that's when he has time in his schedule to do. But they get stuck in a blizzard and everyone goes a little crazy, especially the father and the older son, played by Brady, and then everyone dies. That's the fiction part.
The irony being...
Well, we go up to shoot this thing on the real place where it happened, and we get snowed in a few days, and a lot of people end up dead.
And it's still not clear why.
You had an actor that had psychological problems, and he got too far into character.
But I think the debate is, which actor, Kurt Michelson or Brady Ledgell, don't you think? I mean, isn't that the sort of... and did the director, Richard Maybrick, put them in a mental space that, you know, sort of made this happen?
Well, I'm not going to participate in a documentary that makes my husband out to be a mass murderer.
No one is.
Is that what you're saying? Because he was a film director. He made films, legendary films. That's all he did. He never did anything immoral except make films.
It was very high-pressure filmmaking. It was very remote. It was very insular, you know? I couldn't stand it myself. I'm from Scotland and I'm used to open spaces, and we were stuck in that mansion for just too long.
Do you think Brady Ledgell would have been all right if he wasn't shooting this film?
So I think he would have been shooting people up, like at Columbine. He was just deeply disturbed as an individual. But Richard didn't help him. Richard used that as fuel. He used that energy Brady had.
No matter though, you still have to look at it logical. What actually happened? I mean, I'm Irish and I like fanciful stories, but what actually happened on that set? Here's what happened. Richard took a young actor, Brady Ledgell, and an older method actor, Kurt Michelson, along with a nervous actress in Mia Zarellis and a child actor whose father was, honestly. Just really against all of it. And Richard pushed all of them. There were physical altercations, there were strange things that went on.
But that small skeleton crew that he put together that weekend, they were killed by a young actor who couldn't handle the situation.
But that was Brady. Those are the facts. His family has to deal with that. It wasn't anything Richard did as director. A director just enables the magic, and sometimes it becomes mayhem.
I didn't like Kurt, I never did, and I didn't get along with Richard, and he did something terrible. He made the actors feel like they were a big joke, like frauds. There was so much tension, and it was weird in that Hollywood way, you know, where it would seem friendly, congenial, but then under the surface, it really wasn't. The little jokes would get mean. Richard told Kurt he wasn't an actor, he couldn't act. He said that. He really did. And it was a joke at first, then it wasn't. Once we started getting tired, take after take, and it was sort of the location began to get inside us a little bit. Then Richard would mutter that, "You're not an actor." So there was this time before that weekend when Kurt went on the living room set and he started smashing everything and yelling, "I'm not an actor, I'm not an actor." And he was so furious, like homicidal. He got right up into my face because I was standing next to Richard and he yelled, "I'm not an actor." Now I know he was really yelling at Richard, but in reality it was my face that was getting shouted at. And then Kurt just lost it. He started talking to the camera assistant, Paul Hellberg, like just crazy, taunting. "Did you hear that, Paul? I'm not an actor." "Paulie, do you think I'm an actor? Because he says I'm not an actor and all that." Which is on film. Richard was shooting everything by then. Kurt starts kind of manhandling Paul, who's a young guy, really nice guy, and Kurt is shaking him, sort of like not real, just getting into his role at first. But then not. It's really not. And he punches Paul in the face with every word. "I'm not an actor." That's what you're seeing on that footage. I know it's gone around the world by now. I'm not an actor. But what I realized later was it was becoming a mantra. He was starting to try not to be an actor at all, but to become a man who murders a family. Brady saw all this, just always watching. And it just built from there.
Most of what you hear is bullshit. There were some freaky-deaky things that went on, but nothing you can't explain. But I will say that there was an incident that I didn't like, kind of stayed with me. Kurt had started covering himself in smeared white face paint and red dabs, so he looked like a jester in this full costume. Because in the final scene, the father, who has become like the Victorian killers, he dresses like they did when the murders happened. He's a jester killing people in this living room. And the brothers, two jesters beside him, watch it happen, almost, you could say, gleefully. So then Brady started doing it, dressing that way. And there was one time I went to their trailers and they were both together in there alone and they were being so quiet. And they were both dressed that way, like jesters, staring at each other. It was really getting insane, I thought, at that point. Because they didn't have a call that day for being in costume. So I just thought, what the bloody hell is happening on this set? Someone needs to get us out of this.
Just make it come to an end. That's it, yeah, I mean, my God, it was like being on a train that wouldn't stop. It was just, you just wanted someone to get us out of this.
And yet the final terror had hardly even begun. This concludes the podcast preview of Chills from thescinematicals.com. For more, go to thescinematicals.com and click on the title Chills. And for more of this kind of content, explore the stories on the site, thescinematicals.com. Good night.